Hi there. Just a brief update. Sorry, the last one was kind of depressing. I'll try and be not depressing this time. I'm still working on the book, though. It does begin to look like I'm not going to finish by the end of the month, but I'm going to keep trying at it, keep poking at it, keep pushing, trying to get as much done as I can this month as I can. That sentence didn't work. And I'm just going to keep trying to turn it into a real thing, because I like the story. I kind of like the story, where it's going. So I'm going to go with it and keep pushing at it until the end of the month. And then if I'm not done by the end of the month, I'll plan to finish it. But it's a work in progress. One thing that it is interesting to do with it is I have to come up with my own sort of magic system to the world, my own sort of metaphysical rules. The characters, the main characters in the book, except for one, were pretty much modeled after some LARP characters from a game called Nero. And then later Shattered Isles to a certain, no, not Shattered, Kingsgate to a certain extent. But as a result, they have some, let's say, systemic baggage. Things about their capabilities in those worlds and how they operated that I don't want to carry over, because I don't want to have to carry over the magic systems of those worlds. And I mean the metaphysic systems, not the game systems. Obviously, the game systems are, part of their thing too, but I wanted to sort of start fresh with my own metaphysic. Well, I'm good with language. Ding. My own metaphysical rules, because it allowed me to sort of better shape what was going to happen in the story, how the villains worked, how the scenarios worked, what the MacGuffins could do and what they couldn't do, and things like that. So I needed to design a new sort of metaphysics, and it's interesting to design the metaphysics for a fantasy world, of designing how magic works and how magical creatures fit into the world, and things like that. I don't necessarily have to answer what made the world yet. I might at some point, but I probably won't, actually. But I do need to figure out how things like, does magic work in the world? If it does, how does it work? Are wizards common? Are they rare? How do they function in society? What cost is there to the magic? Infinite magic is boring, among other things, and also presents all kinds of strange story problems, because why don't I just magic it to fix whatever it is? Find the right magic and magic it to death. So you got to have rules. You got to have rules to your magic. Brandon Sanderson does an excellent job with this in Mistborn, and you can sort of tell the people who have done gaming when they design their magic systems from the people who haven't. Because they start answering questions about how the PC's magic works in ways that somebody who hasn't played the game, hasn't played a game, doesn't. And I don't know how to really put my finger on exactly how to define that. But you can tell Brandon Sanderson is a gamer. And I'm a gamer, so there's a certain amount of that. But I don't want to make the rules of the magic in that world necessarily fit into a rules system. I don't want it to make it be thinking, well, if I were writing the game for this is how this would work. I want to make it so that the rules have value to explaining things and limits to what people can do, but I don't necessarily want it to fit into, like, well, here's the game balance ways of dealing with this, and what dice mechanics am I using? I don't want to ever hear the dice rolling in my head. So it's an interesting challenge to approach, because you want it to have the sort of systemic structure that a game presents, but without actually making it a game. In my particular case, I decided to sort of steal a couple of good ideas, because, real genius is stealing other people's ideas. That's a joke. Oh, never mind. So the way the magic works is sort of a hybrid of sort of casting magic has a cost on the body, which is very classic in several places, and I'm crossing it with the 3-tiered magic system of the Marvel Universe. Marvel Universe has this thing where you can cast personal magics, you can cast universal magics, and you can cast extra-dimensional magics. And how those magics interact determines how powerful you are and what kind of effects you can generate. And in my world, mortals, every time they cast a spell, it hurts their body. Just a little, in some regards. Sometimes it's as bad as if they had gone for a run for an hour. And sometimes it's as bad as, this is going to kill you if you do this. But there is always a body cost to it. It hurts their body to do it. It's not natural. It doesn't work. Nosebleeds, muscle aches, massive fatigue, heart palpitations. The body begins to break down after a certain point if you do it too much. There are ways to limit it, and those ways of limiting it, reflect in things like using tools, or the kind of magic you use. For instance, if you use personal magic, it's really expensive. There are not a lot of limits to what you can do with it, as far as functional limits. There are limits on the amount of power you can put out, but there aren't a whole lot of limits to the sort of spells you could craft that way. As opposed to Universal, where there's less of a cost, but it's limited by the power that you're drawing on. So, if you're drawing on the power of the flame in a campfire, you're not going to use that to freeze something. You're pulling on elements in the world, but those elements define what you can do with it. And then, the much easier on the body and much more structured realm is extra-dimensional sources, where you're calling on a power outside the world. Not unlike, I don't know. Well, it's not unlike warlocks in D&D, in that, you're basically making sort of a pact with an extra-dimensional being, but it's much more structured than that, and a lot less, I have cut a deal with something. If you know the rules to the spell, and, know what to say, and how to hold your hands, and what thought processes to go through, and what tools to have on hand, you can cast this spell. It automatically calls on the power of this being to create this spell. That being created the spell somehow. And maybe by their sheer existence, maybe not. But, they really have a lot to do with how the spell is structured and how it works. This also leads to an interesting choice I made in the world. There are priests in the world of gods. And they do get spells, but those spells are the same spells that any wizard can cast if they know how. Because the priests are calling on extra-dimensional beings to cast these spells. They're following ancient and arcane rites that allow them to cast the spell, which are, if the wizard learns those ancient and arcane rites, they can cast that spell even if they're not a follower of that particular extra-dimensional being. The magic is unified in that way. I also had to define how undead work, which is kind of important in this world, in this particular story, concerning that two of my heroes are gravediggers. Undead are going to come up. Sorry, guys. Yeah, undead. They're going to happen. So I had to come up with rules for how they work. And I'll get into that some other time. But I'm at like 10 minutes now. So I'm going to stop talking. I'm just going to wander off. And I'll be back. I'm going to try and be better about this. I've been kind of in the dumps lately. And I apologize. But I'll post something tomorrow. I promise. Assuming the house doesn't burn down or I don't get shot or something, wacky. Wackiness does occasionally happen, but not often. Okay, fairly often. But to somebody. And not necessarily me. And I'm rambling again. Good name for the show, then. Anyway, subscribe, like, share with all the people, and stay out of trouble. Especially you.